It's 6 o'clock and welcome to the May 10th governing body meeting. I call this meeting to order, and I will ask Councilwoman Ortiz to provide the invocation. If you'll give attention to her, rise as you are able, and then continue to stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I'm going to introduce one of my youngest constituents, well, maybe not the youngest, but a young constituent of mine. No, wait a minute. He just goes to church in my district. Okay. His name is Jaleel Cooper. Is that correct? And he's the son of the Reverend Jackson. He's a native of Fort Worth, Texas. He moved to Topeka in July of 2020. He is currently a senior at Shawnee Heights High School. He played basketball for 4 years in Texas and 2 seasons for Shawnee Heights High School. He currently runs track for his high school as well. Jaleel is a very talented musician as well. He has been playing drums since the age of 2 years old, and he currently serves as the drummer for his church, Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church, which is located at 610 Southeast Lime Street, where his father serves as a pastor. He will be graduating from Shawnee Heights this Sunday. His future plans are to attend college and major in sociology and play collegiate basketball. I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Cooper, please, if you'd step forward. It's always nice to invite our young people in. It makes me feel younger, and they are so positive and they have so much. And we love you and we appreciate you coming down today. And we thank you for praying for us. Let's give our attention to this young man.
I would like to thank Councilwoman Ortiz for that introduction and invitation to come today and give the invocation. Thank you to Mayor Padilla and the City Council for the work you do for citizens of Topeka. Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to come to this meeting and attend this meeting. Thank you for all the council. Thank you for all the people that are here and couldn't be here. Lord, I ask that you bless them, and I ask that you let this council meeting go as smoothly as possible. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you would read the roll call, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
I'm really here. I'm here. Right in my seat. I'm here tonight. And I will not sign the guest book.
Emerson. Councilmember Emerson. Councilmembers Kell. Nager.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Lesser.
Here.
We have 8 present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did Councilor Emerson just join us? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda are 2 proclamations. The first is a proclamation for Community Action Month. And if I could have Christine Hart, and I think she has some guests with her as well. If they'll join me up here as I read. So, the coop has been pulled off, right? Thank you, Tim. A proclamation by the mayor. Whereas community action connects individuals and families to support that help them succeed and promotes community-wide solutions to challenges throughout our city. And whereas community action has put a human face on poverty for 58 years by advocating for citizens with lower income so that they may move from poverty to prosperity. And whereas community action builds and promotes economic mobility as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities, which in turn promotes self-sufficiency, ensuring that all Americans are able to live in dignity. And whereas community action offers family supports, affordable housing, early childhood education, and basic needs, all with a racial and economic equity lens. And whereas community action will continue to implement innovative and evidence-informed programs to improve the lives and conditions of people living with low income, continue to provide support and opportunities for all citizens in need of assistance, and continue to focus on a broader range of community challenges to ignite economic growth and ensure all families can benefit, and will continue to be a voice for the underrepresented. Now, therefore, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Community Action Month in recognition of the passion and dedication of our local community action agency and the staff and volunteers who work there. In witness whereof, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby certify, affix my official signature and the official seal of the City of Topeka, Kansas on this 10th day of May, 2022. Christine, if you would like to have, would you like to say it?
And I will keep this very short, but on behalf of Community Action, I would like to thank the Topeka City Council for this proclamation and recognizing the amazing work that the organization does in our community. And thank you for your continued support of that work. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. See if I can break this thing. Take the show on the road. Okay, next we have a proclamation to recognize the Letter Carriers Food Drive Day. That's something I think all of us are probably familiar with. I know that I've been anticipating it, have been collecting good food to put in those sacks when the letter carriers come around. They do a real good job of it. I appreciate that effort. We have Michelle Jellison and Amy Pinger. I think will be, if you want to join me up here. A proclamation by the mayor. Whereas since 1993, the annual Association of Letter Carriers has partnered with Feeding America Network of food banks for a food drive that spans across the country and raises more than 70 million pounds of food each year. And whereas the Stamp Out Hunger food drive is the nation's largest single-day food drive and is essential in helping both to raise awareness about hunger in our country, as well as provide a large amount of food to combat our nation's need. And whereas on Saturday, May 14th, the National Association of Letter Carriers will be collecting food in the Topeka area. Prior to the pandemic, harvesters and other hunger relief agencies in Topeka received nearly 300,000 pounds of food and raised over $40,000 in a single day, which enabled them to provide more than 375,000 meals to hungry families in Topeka and Shawnee County. And whereas we recognize all letter carriers for their hard work and their commitment to their communities, all of the food collected in our community stays in our community, and we support the carriers' efforts to help those in need of our community. And we also recognize the noteworthy milestone of 30 years that the National Letter Carrier Food Drive celebrates in 2022. Now, therefore, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 14th, 2022, as Letter Carriers Food Drive in the city of Topeka and Shawnee County, and encourage the citizens of our community to support the food drive by placing non-perishable food items in or near your mailbox on Food Drive Day. Your letter carrier will pick it up while delivering the mail, and together we can all help to feed our hungry. In witness thereof, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby affix my official signature and the official seal of the City of Topeka, Kansas on this 10th day of May, 2022. So, should you make the seat, Amy? Yeah.
On behalf of harvesters and the letter carriers, we are just so thankful to you, Mayor, for this proclamation and recognition of this day, and to the City Council. The need here in our community is essential. It raised about 40% during the pandemic, and we're talking about food, which is a very basic need for folks. And these letter carriers beside me have been in the community every single day. They see that need every single day as they're delivering the mail. And so this upcoming Saturday, they're really excited to help meet that need. Our goal is 60,000 meals in a single day on Saturday, May 14th. And so we hope that you will help and support us that day. Thank you.
And yes, I would encourage everyone to put out what they can. Make it easy to find. Don't put it up in a tree or something like that so that you have to look for it. I think the community always responds very well to this day. We'll move on now to item number 3 on the agenda, if the clerk would read.
Item 3A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Beverly Hall to the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council for a term ending May 10th, 2025. Item B is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Jim Edwards to the City of Topeka Citizens Advisory Council for an expired term ending May 10th, 2024. Item C is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Tamika Sellers to the Topeka Housing Authority Advisory Board to fill an expired term expiring on May 10th, 2026.
Thank you. You've heard the appointments. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Dobler and a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. If you'll call the roll.
Councilmembers Nager? Yes. Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Lesser?
Yes.
Hiller? Yes. Valdivia Acala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
We have 8 voting yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. And I I want to make sure that if you're in attendance today, please stand so you can be recognized for your appointment to these boards. Thank you for your service. Okay, Madam Clerk, if we'll move on to item number 4.
Item 4A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as Sunshine Reggae Festival. Item B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as Jam for Dan. Item C is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting the Celtic Fox an exception to the provisions of the City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 concerning noise prohibitions for the Sunshine Reggae Festival. Item D is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting the Celtic Fox an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 concerning noise prohibitions for Jam for Dan event. Item E is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz granting Kimberly Rice an exception to the provisions of the City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 concerning noise prohibitions. Item F, the May 3rd minutes have been moved to the May 17th agenda. And item G for applications, there is a list of cereal malt beverage applications that were sent to you this afternoon, and staff is requesting approval.
Okay, thank you. We've heard the consent agenda. Is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilwoman Ortiz. And a second by Councilman Dobler. If you would call the roll.
Council members Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller, Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Nager.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes. Motion carries.
Motion have been carried. We'll move now to action items on the agenda, number 5, if the clerk would read.
Item 5A is a resolution introduced by members of the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of council members Tony Emerson, Neil Dobler, and Mike Lesser, recommending approval of certain public infrastructure projects in 2022 utilizing citywide half-cent sales tax funds and general obligation bonds.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, governing body, these are projects that were approved under half-cent sales tax, recommended for approval by the PWI committee, and brought to this body as a whole for action.
Thank you. Ask if any members of that committee would like to speak.
Since Councilman Emerson, who's chair of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, is not here, I'll just note that these are some great projects as you look through it. A lot of neighborhood-type improvements, curb and gutter, ADA sidewalk ramps, infill sidewalks, as well as some a couple of larger projects. Also include some alley repair. So we're seeing some great work by folks in Public Works getting a lot of those dollars on the street, and I would encourage passage of this. Thank you.
Any further comment? Are you making a motion to accept? A motion to accept by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Lesser. If you will call the vote.
Council members Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz, Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes, motion carries.
Motion has been carried. I want to thank the committee for bringing this to the governing body as a whole, and thank you for your work. Important that we get these projects done. If I'll ask the Madam Clerk to read action item 5B.
Item B is a resolution introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran authorizing and adopting the 2023 through 2032 capital improvement program and the 2023 through 2024 capital improvement budget and approving project budgets.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, this is kind of the culmination of our CIP process. We've been discussing it for several weeks. This is a recommendation asking for a vote of approval of the CIP budget as presented. And as it was stated, this is the 23 through 32 CIP program budget. As we anticipated, or as was pointed out, the next 3 years, the self-imposed 9 point whatever million that the governing body has on itself for 27 over 3. We anticipate that this will go over in the first 3 years, and that information was presented to everybody earlier today. Now, with that, we do stand for questions. I do have Mr. Steve Wade, Finance Director, available to answer any questions at this time.
We do have somebody signed up for public comment on this item. Mr. Ledbetter, if you wish to step forward.
Thank you, governing body. As I looked through this, I got to look at it today, finally. I still have a couple of concerns that just kind of jump out at me, and I've talked about these before, so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure it's completely on the record and understood that where I'm at on a couple of these items. I go down to GO bonds, and I'm looking at project years FY23, and one of the big projects that has concerned me, and I've done some research on it, I've shared it with the council members, the governing body, about the municipal building and TPAC HVAC. I've shared with you that you've already spent $2 million on that in 2018. That I've shared with you information about what the county spent, and although it's not a complete apples to apples, what they spent on Stormont Vale Center, a very large facility, and it included the outlying facilities as well, was around $2 million. And so I know that Mr. Emerson has told me there's what's called split ductless systems that can be looked at that are cheaper. I don't know if he wants to comment on those tonight, but I think for $10 million, we need to give a real pause, especially since we're geo-bonding it, which will add more cost to doing these facilities. Obviously, I support the Poe Quincy project and whatever we need to spend on that. That's an incredibly good investment, and we're leveraging a lot of money out of the state and others for that, with that small amount of money in comparison. I am concerned about the parking facilities, capital repairs. 2022, we're talking about $3 million on parking garages. The next year, $2 million on parking garages. We have, I believe, according to the papers, at least 3 council people that think that maybe some or all of those parking garages need to possibly be sold or something else done with the private sector. I can't speak for them, but I will tell you that you've got fee simple ownership, as I recall, on 4 of them. The older ones are probably the ones that need the most work, that are fee simple. But one thing about repairing things when you do it publicly versus the private sector, and I'm being cautious here about inflation because it's biting everybody, but the private sector tends to be able to get these repair projects done a lot cheaper than the public sector when they own these facilities. So I want to point that out. I have for several years said that I think it'd be a good move to sell at least a couple or more of these parking garages off rather than pay the huge amounts for the repairs, because I am very concerned about revenue bonds and, well, this would be geo bonds, but just the debt of this city in comparison to having other options that we might not need to borrow money on. So those are my concerns, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Wade, stand for any questions from the body they may have on this item. Councilman Dover.
Thank you. Question for the city attorney. The project for the municipal building, is that required to come before the council for approval as a project budget? I'm not exactly remembering what all we put in that resolution. It's been a couple of years.
I would have to check. I believe it does, however.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilwoman Hiller, and then Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just some comments, and mostly comments, I guess. First, I really appreciate all the hard work that the staff has done on this and the questions that they've answered and adjustments that they've made. I know it's been a long haul. I feel like I need to say for the record that I'm not comfortable with however the decision, legal opinion came out that because we are going over our council adopted bonding limit, that we don't have to vote to make an exception to our policy to do that. I was on the council when that got passed, and that was the intent. Not that we would never do it, hoping that we would never do it, but at least knowing that that would require then the transparency and everyone to know that it was happening and why. And then if there were any, stipulations anybody wanted to put with that vote, they could. And so it sounds like you've got it set up to roll without that this year, but I hope both that we don't need to do it again, but also that it doesn't happen again that way. Two of the big ticket items that were added that are pushing that are the consideration of the parking garages, as well as the City Hall and TPAC project. I've been involved in some conversations. I don't know that, I want it in the record that I made these comments. I don't know that a motion is necessary, but if it is, I would be happy to do it. I think that it's critical soon that the council get briefed on the parking plan as it was before COVID. Apparently we got it finally about 4 o'clock this afternoon. But those of us that were here that kind of lived with that as it was developed, it's hard to understand the dynamics of downtown parking. And so I hope that we can have a session where we can all be brought current with what the vision was before and how you look at it, so that as we then move forward with considerations of changes, yes or no, that we're all kind of at the same place. And I would request the same for the City Hall TPAC project. That was a big deal back when the council decided not to fund it, but I was a little dismayed to hear from senior staff, city manager actually, that it was his opinion, his understanding that the council didn't like that plan at the time. And I want everybody to have a chance to look at it, because I disagree with that. I think people liked it. It was very preservation oriented, but very contemporary and visionary in some of the things. We may not do them all, But before we spend any money on hiring yet a third round of engineering, I'd like to have the council get a chance to get inside what that idea was in the first place and see what kind of reaction and feedback you get from us. And then as Councilman Dobler said, yes, I think it definitely needs to come back to us before it's done. It is City Hall, and it's a big ticket item as well. But for us to get started, all of us in the same place, I really would like to see us get a chance, all of us, to get inside what those ideas were at first, both mechanically as well as redesign and upgrading of spaces. So we don't get another round of designs done only to learn that everybody would have liked the first ones instead, let's just say. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, appreciate the work. I know it's hard and we have lots of moving parts, especially right now. Thanks again.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry I'm not there tonight. I've had several conversations with people with some on staff and a couple other council members over the last few days, or maybe the last week about this. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of stuff is coming together right now. As Councilwoman Hiller just said, we just today at 4 o'clock got a new copy of the parking study. I don't know. It just feels like there's several things here that are in motion, and we're trying to make a decision on voting for something when there's several things are in flux right now. Staff has done a fantastic job with this CIP this year. So I hate to be the guy, but I would sure like to maybe push this 1 week or something on the vote. That would be, I guess, my request. I may be the only one feeling that way, but I don't know. I'd love to get a couple things settled before we vote on this. It just seems like it's maybe a backwards thing, like we're going to vote on it, and then maybe in a month we're going to find out we're maybe going to sell one or two or more of the garages, or I don't know. It just seems like it's a little backwards. We're here, maybe going to approve money for parking garages, and we may not own all of them. So again, I guess that would be my request, and maybe even next week is too soon. And I'm glad I'm not there, because Mr. Wade would probably trying to throw something at me after talking about this for a month. But and I really appreciate all the work staff's done. I don't feel ready tonight with everything in flux, but that's just me, maybe.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or thoughts? City Manager, is there anything you can offer to address those concerns that have been brought up?
Yeah, Mayor, the parking plan, there is no new parking plan. It's the same one that's been in place, updated in 2020. And so when it was sent to you, it's just the same one that has been out there for several years. Our recommendation was going to be, when we get to the non-action items, that we push the parking conversation to August. We have a meeting next week with internal staff to look at things. We did have the request for bids in the aspect of the parking garage, looking at those, how it falls into place, then go in front of the PWI committee, present information, updated information there, and then if we come up with or revamp the parking plan as it is, that would be the recommendation. But we have a meeting next Monday on the 16th, and so that's on the parking plan. That's the information there. The HVAC system, I understand $10 million is a lot. It's also one of those things that we are continuing to work on and get many accurate bids. We're looking at different things. And so the request for the $10 million does not mean that we are going to spend $10 million. The request put it in the CIP is that we have the ability that if we have to do it, if that's the cost, then we'll have the dollars and we don't have to come back and ask for more. The hopes or anticipation is that we'll be several $1,000,000 below that, But at this point, I just cannot give you an accurate estimate on what the HVAC system is going to be.
Thank you, City Manager. Further questions or detail? Mr. Wade, do you have any that you would like to submit right now?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Manager.
Councilman Markey.
Okay. Oh, there's somebody in that seat. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. City Manager, interim City Manager, I don't understand how we don't know how much it's gonna be, how you don't know that number. I mean, is it so old you don't know?
The two most recent bids we have is $10 million. And so I am not comfortable with $10 million, but I'm also not an HVAC person. So the hopes are, the wish are that we can look at some other contractors, engineers, and see if that price is low.
Will these be for new ones or just revamp what needs to be done to keep them moving, or what is?
It'll be new chillers, new units itself, and then the question that comes into play is how much of the ductwork, if any, has to be replaced in the intake and outtake ventilation system.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
I don't know who this question is for, but we have the authority within the CIP to, within those expenditures, still request something comes back to us for approval before it's actually expended, correct?
Correct, and that's what I was verifying. So yes, you do have the authority under the CIP as well as the city code to require approval of all project budgets and project amendment budgets.
And this would be the projects that we're talking about, especially as in the interim capacity, would be bringing these ideas or these big ticket items back to the governing body.
Well, specific to this one, I guess my recommendation, or I'll just make it as a motion and someone can either not second it or second it and we can go from there, is I would move that relative to the HVAC, we would ask that any expenditure exceeding $3 million or more on that project would have to come back to this governing body for approval before staff could move forward.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I have a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. Discussion.
Thanks, Mayor. What's the process look like? What are you going to do next to get from not knowing anything to knowing something?
That's a good question. It'll be conversation again with utilities and the Public Works Director, and we need to interview and have conversation with those engineers that have submitted bids, and we need to look at what the scope of the project actually is and what we need to achieve. What do we need to do to achieve what we need to achieve?
Okay, how much, you discussed a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe now, the engineering, preliminary part of it to get to the point where we know what needs to be done was $1 million or so. Does that still stand?
Yes, sir. I have $1 million that I have told staff that we're going to allocate. And so,
Is it, pardon me, is it part of the 10 million?
no, sir, it is part of the 2.8 million that is left in the City Hall renovation fund.
Okay, so it's feasible that you could figure out the answer to the question that seems to be eluding everybody and bring that back before spending any of the $10 million?
Yes, sir, and this is a priority.
Okay. I guess I would
Friendly amendment at the $1.
$1. There you go.
I was good with
I was
that.
going to say 0, but one will work.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
Further discussion? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to belabor this too much, but I realize that all of the senior staff and this process right now weren't here when weren't in those positions when that happened before. And I just want you to understand that I'll speak for myself, but I think I can speak for the whole council. I think we're willing to be visionary and work smart, that while we're in the building anyway, if there's some smart things to do to reconfigure space at the same time, that it makes sense. And so why not? What happened was that the council allocated $8 million and was told that's all it would take to get the whole building redone. Then later, after like a $400,000 engineering thing and then starting over again with engineering and architectural design, they came back and said, oh, it's going to be 17 million and that's it. And when that happened, we all kind of choked. It was at a time when money was really tight, not that it isn't now. And then we said, well, no. And then it was like getting the sucker punch or whatever. It was like, well, then you're not giving us enough to even do the HVAC, so we're just going to do nothing. And that was really hard. And in terms of gathering some of those documents, because I really do think we need to share them with everyone. I mean, I found an email from a former, I think it was a city manager that just said, hey, I'm the city manager, and once you council vote for the money, we can do whatever we want. And that's what makes us nervous, I think. So I'm certainly supportive of the dollar thing, but I don't want y'all to take it personally either. I think it's a really good way for us to do this process, to get us all up to speed with what is needed and what some of the ideas and dreams were before, so that we can give you some guidance from this current council on what makes sense to us and what we'd like to see and what we think may be necessary or could wait to a phase 2 or 3 before we spend anything. So again, it's not you guys, you inherited this, but for those of us that went through it, it was pretty rugged and don't want it to happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, just checking. Further comment?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Lesser.
No, I again thank everybody for the hard work on this project and on this. Fundamentally, you know, from my experience, especially, I tend to see in conversations I also have in lots and lots of different construction projects, especially if they're being bonded and what have you, is if there's a top in budget, I'll tell you two things. They generally figure out a way to get to it. The second piece of it that I can say that I also do know from experience, and I know I can't get in trouble because she never watches, is if I tell my wife she has a budget of $500 to go shopping, she's going to spend $499. So I just don't think it's good policy to set a top number that says, hey, here's what we're allocating. I think we put it out, we get the design, we see where it comes in at, we evaluate it, and that's what it's going to be, and we go from there. But I've never thought that it was. I've never thought it's been good policy, and I have had experience in being in the construction industry with my dad and blah 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 for X amount of years, and doing what I do for a living too, of knowing that unfortunately, I'm trying to figure out a real nice way to say this, Neil, but you know, if there's an addition that can be made, they're generally going to find a way to figure it out. That's just the way this is, and I don't blame him. Tony does a lot of it in his excavation business, but my point is, I just don't like setting that number. Setting a number and say, hey, we got up to this amount, because then you set the bar that everybody's gonna. I'm just telling you, you know, not my first rodeo. So come up with what the plan is, put it out for bid, put it out for the specs after we get the design, and see where the numbers come, and then let the chips fall where they may. I just think that's
a hell of a lot better policy than coming out and saying, hey, we're going to allow X amount, because I guarantee you, people talk, people get together. That's just the way it works. So that's just my 2 cents. I'll wait for my phone to ring tomorrow.
Thank you, Councilman. Your wife could be watching, who knows?
I wouldn't worry about it.
I want to make sure, Madam Clerk, that we had an amendment and then a friendly amendment. All right? So we're voting on the amendment first and then on the resolution?
Correct. And can I just ask a clarifying question on the amendment? It is $1. If you would give me Scribner's permission to fix the ordinance or the resolution as needed to make that all work when we publish the final version, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So the first vote we're taking now is on the amendment. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Council members Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Hiller, council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes. Motion carries on the friendly amendment.
Thank you. Now we'll be voting on the resolution with the amendment. Okay. Is there a motion?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Would this be the appropriate time if I also wanted to make a change on the parking?
You would have to make another amendment to the resolution, or,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to also pull out the town site plaza parking garage for us to evaluate that on its own merits in regards to sale or maintenance. The reason I do that, which has quite frankly came to my attention, a couple different things. Number one, it has nothing to do with honestly the current administration in regards to Mr. Copley, who's over that department, Mr. Wade in finance, or city manager Cochran. But the uniqueness of this this garage compared to all of the other ones is it has a direct result on the business owner that actually owns the business that the garage that is on top of the garage. Secondarily, a lot of people don't know we do not own that garage. We have an easement on that garage, and the owner then also has a first right of first refusal if we did decide to sell it. Secondarily, we have been offered $1 million for the purchase of that garage, and I think we need to consider that as well as in conjunction with the deferred maintenance that we have estimates on for that garage. Because of the uniqueness of this garage in relationship to the success of the business and the tenants above that, I see that as different as than the freestanding parking garages we have. I'm not saying that the answer is for us to sell this. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I think that it deserves a conversation on its own merits because of the uniqueness of the situation with this garage. And there were 88 lights that were out in this garage. 88. The conditions of this garage from a maintenance and filth was
disgusting. And we have to do better than that. And in this situation, I think it warrants having its own conversation separate to the selling of all of them in totality for the aforementioned items that I just mentioned. That's all I got.
Councilman, for my clarity, or do you want to just include that one garage or the garages entirely and speak to them separately from the CIP?
My position is that one it gets handled separately in comparison to all the other garages in regards to as we move forward and look at the sale as well as the maintenance. Make sense?
Deputy Mayor?
Just clarification. So this motion would remove that garage from the CIP discussion with the intent that we sort of talk about it maybe before we have the longer conversations about the rest of the garages. And I'm okay with that. I'm just clarifying that.
That would be
okay.
correct.
I would second that.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. And I just want to make clear that everybody understands. Councilwoman Hiller?
Well, you've already heard what I said about garages in prior meetings, and now these garages are a system. And so I very much appreciate this particular story about Townsite, but I'm very nervous about us doing anything until, as a body, we understand the whole picture. And so it's okay with me to have the money in the CIP, and I hadn't prepared a motion, but I want us to understand not just Townsite, but all of them before we do anything. So if that could be built on the same $1 thing, maybe that's the thing to do. I understand that you're wanting to bring something back to us in August, but what I'm hearing from the council is people would like to know more sooner. And because Townsite's not the only project that's got, I represent downtown. I've sat in on all those discussions. It is complex. It is worth spending the time to understand each garage and how the system works and how it works with parking on the street and where we thought we were going, what COVID did to everything. I haven't even seen what staff thinks now. And you know, I'm front line with all that. But I do know of some of the particulars on the other garages as well. So I'm not unwilling to look at anything, but I think we have to look at that system before we do anything. So I can't remember what Mike's motion was exactly, but I would like to have us make a substitute motion that says something to the effect that we would have a full briefing on the entire garage system before we take any steps.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If I could have the motion restated, please.
So I believe Councilman Lesser's original motion was to strike the Townsite garage from the CIP book, which is attached by reference to the resolution. And if I understood Councilwoman Hiller's substitute motion correctly, the substitute motion is to strike all of the parking facilities and substitute it with a complete discussion of the parking plan before any steps are proceeded. I'm not quite sure I summarized that accurately.
My motion would not be to take the money out and just not to strike any of the garages. We need to figure out where we are and what to do with the whole system. So it would simply be that before we take any steps, we have a full briefing for the council to understand the whole system. And that can happen within the next 30 days. It shouldn't delay anything. So no, it's not to take the money out. It's just that we're fully briefed and prepared before we do any joint or one-off actions.
If I may. Councilwoman, am I correct that you stated that the plans that we have now, the parking garage plans, are the same plans that have been in place for some time. So no new information.
I don't think that's true at all. The parking study was done in 2018, I want to say. So it was the first time in a while that we'd gone through all of them and what their circumstances were and what needed to be done. And a master strategy was proposed. I can't remember, I think adopted. I mean, we expected to move forward on that master strategy to get the garages fixed with the assumption that we would own and manage them all. That was updated with, and part of what got emailed out to people today was updates that were done by current staff in 2020. Then we jumped into COVID and bagged meters and had people that usually rented garage spaces not being at work and the leases dropping and the day-to-day shopping dropping because everything was closed. What we don't have is the update on, okay, where do we think we are? And is there a catch-up? Is there a gap? We have the RFQ now, so they've got some ideas on people that either want an individual garage or that want to manage the whole system, it sounds like. That's good. Just think we need to be fully briefed on the whole system before we do anything.
Councilman Lester.
I adamantly disagree. I'll say two things. We have a business owner that invested $10 million in that building downtown that if you look at it now compared to what it was both inside and outside, it is an event center. The capacity is getting full. He's dependent upon this parking garage, and if that is the case, then I think we owe it to him. He's afraid to show tenants down there to show them that's a parking spot. And I think we owe it to him to pull this thing out of there and then react on this one way or the other, where we come up with a solid plan that helps sustain the business of him renting to tenants, using the event space, and them having a safe place to park that doesn't have 88 lights out, drain covers not full, filth in the parking garage. And he made it through COVID through that, during this period. And that's not the way business works, is we wait till we get this full plan and let him lose every piece of tenant and potential tenants that he has possibly coming in till we feel really good about what our total parking plan is. This is a separate building that we don't even own. We have an easement on. We have an offer of $1 million already on the table for it. And I think we owe it to this individuals who's invested in our downtown to pull it out and make a decision whether we're going to get it fixed, get it maintained, or we're going to sell it to them. And yes, it is in your district, and if that is the case, I would have hoped that you would have been aware there were 88 lights down there that were out. The filth that was going on down there, if that's what the case is. But sitting around and waiting for us to have a full parking plan until we address what is safety hazard number one, two, and counterproductive to a man running this business who's invested this type of money downtown, it's just poor business. It's foolish. And I'm not saying what we do. I'm saying we pull it out and take a look at it to figure out what the right thing to do is, but we don't sit back and wait for more people to say, I'm not going to rent here because I'm not feeling safe parking down in this garage or the condition of it. Pretty simple.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Dobler, then Deputy Mayor.
What do we have on the floor right now?
Councilman Lesser's motion has been seconded by Duncan. Councilwoman Hiller has a substitute motion that has not been seconded.
I'm going to call the question.
Question has been called. We vote on.
To clarify, there has been no second on the substitute motion, so that would die. So it's calling on Councilman Lesser's motion.
Exactly. And please restate Councilman Lester's motion.
Councilman Lesser's motion would be to delete the town site garage from the CIP book so that it can be evaluated on its own merits.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz. Oh, that's right. Okay. No further discussion.
While I disagreed with this and brought it to this body when you called the question, because as I recall, my words were, I'm a much meaner person than the rest of you. Our governing body rules also state that once the question is called, if you have not already spoken to the amendment or question in front of us, you can still have one opportunity to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. So what does the motion really mean by taking it out? Are we taking it completely out? Are we just pausing it so we study it? I mean, what does that mean, Mike? I don't have a problem studying it, but if you feel that we need to do something, if we take it out, what are we going to have to do something? Are we going to have to put it back in? Somebody.
Councilman Lesser.
My intention of that is that we bring this out and then we immediately start having discussions about whether or not we're going to sell this one property, whether or not we're going to fix it, bring it up to par, so it doesn't become counterproductive to the business owner who actually has the first right of refusal of the garage. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So once we figure out what we're going to do, then we put it back in? Is that what we're saying here? Is that what I'm voting on? We're taking it out to discuss it or figure out what we're going to do. Then once we do that, then we have to come back and vote to put it back in, or it just goes back in. I'm just trying to clarify the vote.
And I'll refer to Amanda a little bit, but my understanding would be it either goes back in and we immediately allocate the money and then start the repairs on it, or we make the decision that we're going to accept the offer and sell it to the owner of the plaza in the town. That would be my understanding. My intention.
At that time, you could choose whether or not to amend your CIP to rebond it. You could choose to pay cash for it. You could choose to pull from reserves. There's lots of various options that you could choose in the future.
But right now, the vote is to take it completely out.
Correct. So it would not be part of the CIP that you were funding at this time.
All right. Thank you. I just want to make sure that we have money to do what we need to do or whatever if we're going to do something. Thank you.
If I could make a friendly suggestion, not to actually take the money out, just to basically, we're telling staff not to spend money on the garage till we figure it out. Once we make that decision, then we don't have to amend the CIP at that point. The money would still be in there if you're good with that, Councilman.
I'm good with that friendly amendment as long as that does mean that it immediately either goes to our committee for immediate evaluation to bring back to this body, but it doesn't harbor waiting for the entire plan to.
Exactly.
Correct.
Christina.
Councilwoman Christina Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you please restate what Councilman Dogler just said?
Basically, what he has said is that we're not taking the money out, but it still will be there so that when we come back for deliberations on that particular garage, that we can put it back in or take advantage of any of the other options that may be presented to us at that time. Okay, thank you. I haven't, Councilwoman Hiller, we've already called the question, and you've spoken to the item.
It has changed. I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't suggesting that we wait until a new plan is done, that everybody understand where we are. And it sounds like that will happen either way. At least I hope so. So thank you.
If I may speak now. Thank you. I haven't spoken to this item yet. I like and will support the suggestion made by Councilman Lesser. I don't think that we need to delay further work on the CIP and the CID waiting to go over what I don't believe is that new of a garage plan. It seems like we would be going over material that we are aware of, and I think for myself, it's important that we move cautiously, but move. And this will give us that opportunity. So I would support Councilman Lesser's motion. No further comment? We'll move on.
So to clarify, the
Attorney?
call is on Councilman Lesser's motion that was seconded by Councilman Duncan with the friendly amendment suggested by Councilman Dobler that was accepted by the second, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Kelly, you call the roll.
Could we restate the final motion?
The final motion would be to amend the CIP to state that no money can be spent on the town site garage until a thorough discussion and decision is made by the governing body on how to proceed. But the money will stay in the CIP.
Okay. Thank you. Now will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council Members Heller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz. Yes. Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes. Motion carries.
Motion has passed. Thank you for the discussion and the questions asked. I think it's good for us to have that back and forth, giving clarity to the motions that we're making so we know what we're voting on. So we'll move on to the next item.
Correct. We haven't actually voted on the CIP
Oh, no.
resolution.
I'm sorry. Yes. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to follow up on something that Councilman Lesser said a little bit ago regarding the HVAC, actually. And you know, he made a great point that, you know, sometimes when you assign a price to something, that kind of sets the expectation on Yeah, well, I would actually say insurance guys is what I've noticed that, you know, if I tell them I have 500,000 spent on insurance a year, people's insurance seems to actually always be like 500,000 is what they quote me. But no, in all seriousness, I wonder if perhaps it might be smart if staff, you know, my conversations, they seem to think that might be off by a factor of 2. Maybe it's a $5 million thing. Should we perhaps be looking at getting that number refined a little bit so that we don't unintentionally mislead people to that we're wanting something bigger than we need, I guess. And I guess maybe, and I know that the corollary of that is if it ends up, you know, if we say 5 million and then it ends up being 6 million, staff has to come back and go through this whole process with us to add another $1 million. So I do feel their pain for that. On the other hand, I think there's potential here to save significant money if we put maybe a little bit stronger bounds on that. So I guess my motion would be to change the amount that we have in the HVAC from 10 million right now to 5 million. That'd be my motion.
You have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. You second? Okay. Second by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. Okay. Further discussion? Councilwoman Hiller.
Quick question to Councilman Emerson, just for clarity. When you said that, is the assumption behind it that this estimate will include both City Hall and TPAC?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I don't want to speak for staff, and perhaps staff can come up and clarify if they would like. But I've heard things from maybe it's 3 to 5 million is really what they think it can be done for. They don't want to get a situation where they have to come back to us and ask for more money. On the other hand, I hate to go in with twice of what they think it needs.
My concern was just to make sure that it was very clear that the council's intention was to include both sides of the building this time, so that we don't do another cycle of that. So thank you. It's good.
You're welcome.
Further questions? We have a motion. And who was our second? Christina? Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Further discussion? If you will call the roll, please.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
No.
Lesser, Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
we have 8 voting yes. Motion carries.
Okay. Now we can move on to voting on Resolution 5B as amended. Correct?
Correct, but there's been no motion to move that forward yet.
Exactly. Have a motion to approve as amended from Councilwoman Ortiz. Do I have a second? Second from Councilwoman Nager. Any further discussion? Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Council members Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller,
Yes.
we have 9 voting yes. Motion carries.
Motion has carried. And we will move on now to the agenda item 6, non-action items, if the clerk would read. Oh, the C, we have that one still yet? Okay. Move on to the resolution authorizing revenue bonds, if the clerk would read.
Item 5C is a resolution introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran declaring the necessity to repair, alter, reconstruct, enlarge, and improve the city's water pollution, and/or stormwater utility system through improvement projects authorized by the resolution, and providing notice of intention authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds in manner required by KSA 10-1201.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, government body, this is to authorize revenue bonds for utility work. Have Utilities Director, Mr. Copley here, available for questions, as well as Mr. Wade, Finance Director, to answer any questions that may potentially arise.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wade, do you have anything to offer?
Just that now that you've approved the CIP, this would authorize the revenue bond side of it.
Thank you. You've heard,
Yep.
Okay, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a question for staff. We set aside, was it 35 million of the 46 million, I believe, to pay cash for some things. Is that applying to any of these projects?
It does not apply to the revenue bond section. all of the ARPA money, Councilman, that you're asking about was geo bond.
Okay, for some reason, I thought it was specifically, maybe, I'm sorry, maybe I'm thinking of the next thing that was a lot of water and sewer. So I guess my question is, when would these bonds be sold? And I'm sorry, I know we do this every year, and I probably ask this question every year, but since it's only once a year, it's hard to remember. When would these projects be done? I mean, are these sold now? Or are they sold after the projects are done? Are the temp noted? Can you, I guess, give us a quick primer on that, please?
So in the particular case of these projects, Councilman, if we're not ready to go, we don't sell the bonds. If we have projects that are underway or ready to go, they will either be temp bonded or permanently bonded in August.
Okay, thank you for that. So then, these bonds right now we're authorizing $43,345,318 to be issued. When would these be issued? Only once a project's actually ready to bid, or would these be done in August?
This is basically, I'm trying to answer your question. This is basically a pre-authority to move forward. And so if we have a project that the utility side is ready to move on and it's underway, we'll bond it and we'll sell it in August. If it's something that is not going to be done immediately and can be delayed a year or is delayed a year, it won't be done until the following year.
Great, that's exactly what I want to know. Thank you.
We also have somebody from public comment.
Okay, can I make my comment?
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
So I'm just going to say before the public comment, I'm going to vote no on this. I have asked several times for utilities fund balances. I still don't have them. I guess I will put in a open records request to get that information. I don't believe the governing body has a full grasp of the utilities budget. And so before we give permission to take out $43 million in bonds, I would like a better understanding of the full utilities budgets and fund balances before I'm comfortable voting yes on this evening. So I will be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ledbetter, you signed up for a comment on this item.
Compose myself. Thank you, everybody. I did just send you an email in case, things drug on. I had to leave about this item. Let's just refresh the council about where we've been with revenue bonds over the last several years. Last year, I had to adamantly ask questions of finance department back then. It was under Jessica, and I had to get the involvement of Mr. Cochran to get information out of that department about revenue bond debt. Once I got it, I was completely appalled. I knew it was bad. We were already, this is last year, at $250 million, that's with a B, in debt in revenue bond at that time. I knew that the promises or illusionary promises of we were going to fix our broken water pipes, we were going to replace at least 6 miles a year, was not being done. When I actually looked for documents through Cora's and other discussions, I found that we were maybe replacing 2.5 miles a year, and part of that was through sales tax, which wasn't even part of the rate increases that had been put on us over 2 years ago. My own utility bill, and it does include a small amount for trash, but it's gone from $100 to $130 a month. I'm just one person, one family, and I'm going, this is being replicated. These are huge amounts. These are being replicated to all of our citizens, all of our businesses, all of our small businesses, all of our churches, nonprofits, and schools, etc. I do not see the reason to continue to go into debt when I've been told that we have, and I've shared that information as well, that we have $250 million in reserves in utilities. So we have the money to pay cash for these projects. I especially am concerned when I see another huge amount of over $6 million set aside for water main replacement. We're already supposed to be doing that under our CIP. We've been promised that, and it has not been delivered on. Until we get total control of this utility department, especially the water distribution and stormwater systems, I don't think we have any business borrowing one more dollar of bonded indebtedness on these projects. It was mentioned that we don't have thorough knowledge of our parking garages. I would concur. That's probably very much true. The number on water lines is so much higher. Folks, we've got to pay attention to these elephants in the room. We've got to look at them and stare them down and deal with them. We can't just keep kicking this can down the road. When I looked at those projections that were given me last year, they continued to borrow 40 plus million a year for the next 5 years. Now, this was last year. I said, we're going to be at $500 million of debt just on revenue bonds. Folks, we got to pay attention to the elephant in the room. I don't know if we're stuck in a rut, which is kind of like a grave with both ends cut out. I don't know what we are stuck in that we can't seem to deal with the utility bonded indebtedness before we take on one more dollar. I agree with Spencer Duncan. I wouldn't pass this. And that's all I'm going to say. I know the vote's up to you, but there's a lot of people going to be affected by what you do here tonight. And it could be very negative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. What is our reserve, Steve, for the revenue fund, the utility fund?
I'm pulling that up right now.
Okay. We'll sit here and stare at you while you do it. Steve, do you need a little bit of time to get to where?
Please.
Mayor, could we defer this action to after the non-action item?
We could. How much time do you need, Steve?
I believe I've got the numbers right now.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like for water, we have about $14.5 million. For stormwater, just over $6 million. And for wastewater, about $27 million. Those are the unrestricted amounts. So there is additional money, but those are tied to projects that are in progress.
So if the question is, what are the reserves for our utility funds? The answer is plus or minus $50 million.
Yes, sir.
How much is required for coverage for the bonds, roughly?
180 days. 180 days. $180.
Roughly the same. Roughly the 50.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question would be, since Deputy Mayor brought this up, why hasn't he as elected officials, aren't we privy to the information that he's requesting? And if so, I would want to know, before we vote on this, why he hasn't received it. Why haven't all of us received it, actually? Because I'm sure Deputy Mayor was going to share that information with all of us.
At this point, I don't know that conversation.
Well, I'm throwing the question out there. I'm putting it out there.
I'll give the city manager an opportunity to respond. Mr. Stafford.
Yes, I remember this conversation, and I thought that information was presented to you. If it was not, I apologize, and I know that we'll get that for you, but I was under the impression that you had received.
And Deputy Mayor, if we missed it, it's on me. I have, we shared information in December with the Public Works Committee, and it's possible that you just got missed on it, so I'll send that to you right now.
I would ask, Mayor, that in turn be passed on to all of us.
If the city manager would direct Mr. Wade to do so. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Well, in defense of our normal routines, if I could ask, we get the quarterly reports as soon as they come out. Sometimes that's a little while after the end of the quarter. But don't those quarterly reports each have fund balances in them, or are there different numbers that we need?
They are in the quarterly.
Okay, so each of us could watch those quarterly reports if we want to watch those fund balances, correct?
It's on me, but he doesn't have what he needs.
Understood, but I just, if we're getting that, it's easy. We get a lot of stuff. You guys might not realize it, but if that's there for us, then we can go find them too. Thank you.
If I could ask, did you have
Just a question.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
I mean, obviously, if I'm the only one who still has some questions that now that I have this information would like answered, then that's fine. I mean, I'm a little curious, since we just passed the CIP, I understand we approved these projects. Is there a reason we have to do this tonight and can't wait 1 week? So some of those questions would be answered. I mean, I'm not trying to drag it up till July, but.
Deputy Mayor, if the wishes of the body to push this.
I just want to make sure I'm not, you want you to go sell something tomorrow or, I mean, to save us some money before the rates go up again in a week or whatever. So then, Mayor, I would make a motion to just defer this until next Tuesday as an action item next week.
Okay. A motion to defer till next week. Put it on the agenda with a second from Councilman Dobler. The city clerk would read. Call the roll, please. Oh, Christina, did you have a question?
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay, I would just thank Deputy Mayor for doing that, because I think that what we're seeing tonight is that there is a number of different concerns about a number of different monetary issues. And I am really heartened to see that we're working together as a council to deal with these certain issues as a governing body together. It gives me great, no joke, guys, it gives me great hope that we're able to do this, because this is a lot of stuff to wade through. And I admit that for myself, but that we can work it that way and be so conscientious. Just want to say thank you to everybody for this.
Thank you. Okay. No further comment? Now we'll ask for the roll call vote. This is to defer.
Council members Ortiz, Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Motion is carried, and we'll move on now to agenda item 6, non-action items, if the clerk would read.
Item 6A is discussion regarding a request to donate city property located at 100 Southwest Van Buren Street, Track 7, and 129 Southwest Van Buren Street, Track 9, to the Kansas Department of Transportation for the Polk Quincy Viaduct project.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, this request discussion is to talk about the tracts of land of 100 Southwest Van Buren, as well as 129 Southwest Van Buren. City donation to the Polk Quincy Viaduct for KDOT area improvement for that project. I do have Mr. Copley available to discuss that if anybody has any questions or needs any more information.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Copley? Is that who's going to answer our question? Hi, Braxton. I'm looking at this proposed acquisition, and it looks like there's nothing on the properties. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, that both of them are empty. There is a fence that the state erected on the 100 Van Buren that they've been using for storage of various materials, and that they have reached an agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation to get those materials removed if this goes through.
Now, this shows three X's. And you said 2.
There are 2 lots, ma'am. Two tracts of land.
Okay.
That's what I was referring to, the 129 Southwest Van Buren and the 100 Southwest Van Buren.
Okay. So they're clear. We don't have to tear anything down.
Other than remove the fence.
Okay, we will do that.
No, ma'am. The KDOT's contractor will do that as part of it. And KDOT will be paying the state of Kansas Department of Administration and Kansas Department of Environment, who have the vehicles and materials stored there, to relocate under the relocation assistance.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Just real quickly, Braxton, this donation, that's part of the city's contribution to the ongoing project.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
That was my question as well. Thank you. Is there a value that we're using and that will be offset toward our $20 million?
We can get you that dollar value. It will offset to the 20 million, but I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not a huge amount, but I actually got clarification on that. Hold on.
At the time the contract was negotiated, it was determined that that would be a gift, and this would not count towards the 20 million. We've had subsequent conversations with the state on this issue and have decided to proceed. So there will be we will not get any credit for the value of it, and partially because the 129 parcel is of very little value, and the 100 Southwest Van Buren parcel does have some value. I think it's approximately $250,000. But in discussions with legal, given the fact that the state of Kansas has a long-term lease with it, we would have to share the proceeds of any purchase price paid by KDOT with the state of Kansas in a different agency. And so rather than get into a heated debate with our partner moving forward on this $300 million project, the decision was made to not try to reverse what was initially negotiated in terms of a donation not getting any value.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. I think people know I've been troubled all along since this huge project was not our idea. We were just told it had to happen. And so I appreciate the consideration and the advances that we've made in terms of offsetting our committed share. Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to non-action item 6B, if the clerk would read.
Item B is the discussion regarding parking rate recommendations to support the modernization of the downtown parking system.
City Manager.
Mayor, Gambari, again, this is that conversation about the parking, overall parking situation. Recommendation is we move this to August. We have a meeting next Monday, and then we will provide information to the PWI committee and then have further conversation as to what the overall parking situation for downtown Topeka, including the parking garage, will be.
Have any questions, City Manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to non-action item 6C, if the clerk would read. Didn't see you. Councilwoman Hillary, did you have your hand up?
I did.
I just did.
That's understood. I would sure prefer that before it goes to the committee, we get that briefing to the whole council. Because for us to rely on the committee, we all need to know what the score is in the first place. So I would request that we do that first and soon. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Councilwoman Hiller, is it my understanding you want that information to come to the entire council before it goes to the committee? I mean, you're part of the council, it'd be simultaneous, wouldn't it?
I think for people to know whether or not they want to have input in the committee, I mean, frankly, the press that came out was that all three members of the committee were interested in selling maybe all of the garages. I realized that some of that had to do with just how the press reported it, but there are different feelings about it. And then again, the council members that weren't on the council when all that processing got done, my guess is, are not up to speed on just how the push and pull within that kind of plan works. Also, to be aware, not that we're going to get ahead of the RFQ on the garages, but to be aware of what kind of interest there is so that we all know whether we want to go to that committee meeting that's going to be handled at the committee level or have questions to ask so that we get through it one step at a time and don't end up looping back because there are residual questions. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. City Manager.
So clarification, we're going to come with that information to the entire body and then go to the committee, or will there be a need to go to the committee once we come to the whole body?
Councilwoman, what is your desire? That was my question to you.
I don't know.
Well, I think I understand your intent is that you want the entire committee, council to have the information so that when the committee is working this, that we will have information that we can input on or questions that we can ask because we know what the entire plan is. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly it. Thank you.
Okay. So simultaneous. When they get it, we get it. We all get it at the same time. Okay. Thank you. Anything further?
I have a question.
Councilman Lister.
So, if that's the case, does that circumvent my action that what we just did with Townside, that it immediately goes to our committee for review and evaluation?
I don't believe so.
Separate. Okay, I'm just making sure that I'm understanding, so we're not waiting on a presentation before that can go to that.
Correct. for the clarification. Move on to non-action item 6C, if the clerk would read.
Item C is discussion on the recruitment and hiring of a city manager.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, at this time, I'll call Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Russell Ford, to give you the update on the city manager's process and how that works.
Good evening, governing body. This evening, I'm really going to just turn things over to Paul Bossert from Key Staffing and let him provide you with information. I did send an email with the raw data from the survey and also the summary and selected timeline for the process, but I'll go ahead and pass out hard copies to you all as well. And with that, Paul, I'll just turn it over to you.
Mr. Bossert, good to see you.
You too, Mayor. Thanks for having me here. Obviously, we sent out an executive summary of the survey. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read it. I think it's kind of what we expected. It's all over the place, a lot of varying opinions. We did average out the ratings on each of the core qualities, and it came in pretty narrow. There wasn't a wide gap. So the general comments were pretty helpful. They elicited a lot towards commitments towards Topeka, as we all know. Were there any questions so far on any of that? And then also we provided an updated, more detailed timeline because we're ready to get started.
I think if you could outline the process that you've got and when we're ready to start advertising.
Right. So the video is almost done or done? And so we should be ready to roll out on close of comments, which was next Friday the 13th. So once the comments are closed out, we'll kind of review, go over those again and put those in consideration, but then we'll get started on the recruitment process immediately. That should go through probably the end of June to early July. Then obviously in July, we'll have to pick a meeting to go over a short list of candidates. We'll try to narrow that down as much as possible with still having a wide net so that way we can cover everybody's varying opinions. And then in August, we hope to move to final interviews. We've kind of established that process through everybody's feedback, all of the council members and the governing body. And then we'll move through deliberations. We'll move that along, help you guys try to move that really quickly. We're looking to get an offer extended, hopefully in our last meeting in August. And then obviously we'll probably have some negotiations over some details in that contract with legal. And then probably a 60-day notice or maybe even more. And hopefully looking at a November 1st start date.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Can you just outline what I guess we'll call it the recruitment process, but actually the posting of the notice process looks like? I mean, how do we spread that? What all the different avenues are we going to use to spread that to the world?
So there's numerous places that HR has already identified. We've collaborated with them. Lots of industry websites, newsletters, publications. And then outside of that, we would use our cold sourcing. Our recruiters do a lot of cold sourcing, and that's what we would kind of do, contacting, trying to get referrals, and that's a lot of the part of the process other than just waiting for candidates to come in.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for all of the work that you've put into this so far. As far as receiving candidates, is there anything that we're doing in order to go ahead and remove any biases, skewing towards male, skewing towards white? Is there something that we're doing to kind of even the playing field so we're really looking at the best qualifications and the best ideas going forward and making sure that we have a diverse pool of candidates?
So that's one of the things that we're really focusing on right now, even in evaluating the survey. I've been meeting with all the department heads and all of the council members, so I've had a lot of diverse opinions coming my way. My partner, Patty Mellard, she is actually the one who went over the survey, pulled out some quotes, and did a summary, so that way it's a little bit more objective. Our pre-screeners within our employment at the office, those recruiters, they would never have any sort of information other than the resume on the candidate. We won't have them Googling or doing any sort of public screening on the candidates before they come to us. And then as the executive team, we'd start to narrow that down. I would say that we will have to, by law, collect the EOC information, but that is separate from the applications. So up until that final process, we're probably not going to know anything about their, unless we made assumptions, but we will remain objective. And from a recruiting strategy, we would hope that we would try to source diverse candidates intentionally.
Okay, thank you for making those initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions about the process? Thoughts, ideas? I appreciate the council members who have visited with Mr. Bossert and given him some input and idea. I know that they're, like you said, far-ranging when it comes from the public. But I think generally, we're in some agreement on the council anyway of the basic core values and skill sets that we're looking for. So I thank you for taking the time to visit with Mr. Bossert. If there are no further questions, Councilwoman Hiller.
One comment, and as you work on the calendar, I really appreciate this process as well. You can see if my colleagues agree with me, and I understand setting Friday deadlines, but for us to get a document on Monday, and especially one that's got some meat to it, and need to have read it through before Tuesday evening, is sometimes a challenge. And so it might be something to consider to set Wednesday internal deadlines for, gathering comments or whatever we're doing, so that anything for the council can be sent out by Thursday or Friday. Give us a little more time with it.
Absolutely.
Just a suggestion.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bossert. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda, number 7, public comment. And we have 4 people signed up for public comment this evening. Mr. Tim Edwards. Tim Edwards. Okay. Daniel Walters. Daniel Walters. Terry Bartley. Terry Bartley. I know this guy's here. Mr. Curtis Pitts. Curtis?
Listen, I usually charge for this prettiness mic, so consider this a discount and a family opportunity to get something free that looks this good, but I appreciate that. I do want to say to the group, I want you to take a look around you, and I want you to understand where we're at. You have the potential and the opportunity to be exactly what the free state of Kansas's capital should look like. I talked to a group of young folks that I had to stop in the 90s after the Rodney King verdict who wanted to come downtown because everybody else was burning and looting. I talked to so many young folks about the 90s. Mike, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
City Manager Cartman. You remember in the day when everybody was so bold and they talked about everything, but they didn't have the heart to go out there when the bullets were flying. They knew what it was like to go out there and risk your life, even if it was for free, to save our children. We live in an era right now where we have the opportunity to bring everybody to the table, but you can't get comfortable. Right now, we're comfortable. I can say I'm so comfortable with this city. I feel so hopeful for the first time in many years. When people ask me about race relations and what's going on in our city and about gangs in our city, I say this. Those gangbangers in 2017 and 18 from the 90s came and helped us lower the crime rate. They made sure that when we were having events and activities, those guys have gotten jobs now. And they made sure we had foods and snacks. Those guys now are making sure that their kids are going to school, and many of them are going and graduating from high school and going off to college. Because we told them to believe and start getting involved in the city. But we can't create a ceiling for some people in the city. It's necessary. And listen to me. I want you to look around this room. I'm not saying that this is a racial thing that you're trying to oppress anyone. But I want you to get out your comfort zone. Because the leadership we have in our city right now will actually have the best opportunity to make the change we need to build each section of our city. I'll give you an example. I'm a single parent. My son goes to Hayden High School. It's my turn to fix food for the kids on the football team. Left up to me, they would have egg sandwiches and top ramen noodles with hot dogs in it. But the parents from Guadalupe, Sacred Heart, Hayden High School, the east side and the south side, got together when I walked in with a plan. They already had the food, everything ready to go, and they had partnered together. See, we're talking about the most impoverished kids are now becoming the kids that are working at the Goodyears, the Mars plants, the things that we talked about in the chamber for years, that if we create jobs and opportunities, people will take them, even those ones that we want to get comfortable and leave out. If you go into committee meetings and go into activities and it's the same people, ask yourself why. Because I can tell you right now, and Councilman Leslie, you can agree when it got ugly, how many people were at the Salvation Army with us in the middle of the night? Just us, huh? Because everybody can be an armchair quarterback when there's nothing at risk like your life. And so I didn't come up with it for years because I wanted to prove in my community, in particular the African American community, that we can do some things to help ourselves before we make accusations against anyone. We built the most interesting little amphitheater in an urban farm that you ever seen in your life. And it works. People coming from Holden, Carderdale, pulling up with their families in the height of the pandemic because they knew there was a place for their kids to go. They didn't worry about whether it was black kids or white kids there when they came. They just showed up and backed their vans and cars up. That's the Topeka we got to get to. I can't keep going back and telling these guys who changed their life and their children who are doing the right thing that they can get an opportunity to share. Because it's not your job to bring them to the table. It's people that look like me that's got to say, there's room for you at the table. Let me introduce you to people. Let me introduce you to these leaders. But it can't be every time you got to bring in someone new to do what we had to do when there was no money involved, when it wasn't safe. This is the capital city, and we got a chance to win right now. Be proud of yourself, but don't let them make you comfortable and we lose. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Now we will move on to announcements. Madam Clerk.
For the May 17th agenda, we have 2 mayoral proclamations, 1 board appointment. Presentation is the 2022 City of Topeka Quarterly Report. Consent agenda, resolution for Yvonne Duncan Block Party, noise exception. A resolution for Fellowship Highcrest, noise exception. A resolution for Shriners Anniversary Festival, noise exception. A resolution for Christopher Mulford, noise exception. And a resolution for Topeka Underachievers Half 5K Special Event. For the action items, the item from this evening, the authorizing revenue bonds utility systems, that was moved to action. We have the KDOT Highway I-70 improvements, a land donation, 14100 Southwest Van Buren, and the next item is the 129 Southwest Van Buren. Item C is a resolution to resume the downtown metered parking, the 100 blocks of Kansas Avenue. D is an ordinance for North Vista Apartments. A zoning, properties located at 117 Northeast US Highway 24, and a resolution, item E, for Lamar Advertising. And that concludes the May 17th agenda.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
I'd like to bring everybody's attention that the week of May 15th through the 21st is Public Works Week. So please recognize your public work employees and tell them thank you if you have the opportunity. And my daughter and son-in-law welcomed their second child into the world today at about 12:30. So I am a grandma now.
A grandma.
So, very exciting.
Congratulations. Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that there's a lot of graduation parties going on. There's a lot of graduates that are graduating, and congratulations to all of those young people. And I hope that they are going to be safe. And I hope that that we as adults will talk to them to be safe and how to handle themselves. I did want to comment. I'm sure the mayor will, and I won't comment but too long. But we had a dedication at Our Lady of Guadalupe for the veterans, and it was awesome. It was awesome. If you have not had a chance to get over there and see it, I would encourage you to go over and visit it. What I like is that they are honoring the past, the present, and the future. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson, are you still online with us? Certainly not. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to continue Councilwoman Ortiz's sentiments of congratulating our graduates. Thank you to the families, thank you to the teachers, thank you to the staff that made this happen. And most of all, a very special congratulations to two particular graduates. My brother-in-law graduated from Kansas City University with his MD this last weekend. And this weekend, my younger brother, William Nager, will be graduating with his JD from Washburn Law School here in Topeka. And so I am immensely proud of them both, especially of Will. And I really appreciate all of the things that these students have given to our community while they've been in our community. And I very much look forward to the work that they're going to be doing as they start their careers or start that next level of schooling. To celebrate my own graduation, my own schooling, it is National Dental Care Month. And so I will be putting in a plug to make sure that people know that this is a good time to go ahead and take a look at your oral health, because it is something that really affects you overall. There are great resources online. If you go to Oral Health Kansas or the Kansas Dental Association, either one of their websites have great resources to go ahead and get started, to refresh your knowledge. If you aren't already hooked up with a dentist, you can find a dentist, but there's no better way to go ahead and get information than going to your own local dentist and finding out what's going to work best for you. So I strongly encourage everyone to go ahead and look into that. There's a saying in dentistry that dentistry is not expensive, neglect is. So make sure that you're getting on top of that and protecting your oral health and your overall health. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to note that on next week's agenda, there's a resolution to resume downtown metered parking. Before I get an email from Mike Morse, this is on here because when we put the bags back on the meters in January, we set a target date to reconsider this. Target date is apparently next Tuesday. Be my intention. The idea was to have enough time to do a parking study. Apparently the parking study is not done. That's what I heard earlier. be my intention to move this until that, some future date when that parking study is complete. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
I second that, if that's appropriate time. Just a few things, Mayor. While the mayor was dedicating the memorial at Our Lady of Guadalupe, I was cutting the ribbon at the Ronald McDonald House. They've got a brand new, very nice new kitchen there, which will be utilized by a lot of parents who are, you know, at the hospital with their children and going through a rough time. And it was primarily donated by Tom and Marilyn Dobsky, who own the McDonald's here. And it's a very nice kitchen. It's kind of wanted to hang out and use it myself for a while, but so just, good work over there. That survey for the city manager is still open till Friday, so please get on there. You've got a few days left to go and give us your thoughts. Don't forget to do that. There is a new orangutan at the zoo, and I think on Thursday, I believe, they will tell us what gender and name, what the name is. Who knows how they came up with that?
10 a.m.
10 a.m., okay, on Thursday, so we will all know then. And the last thing is, and Mayor may say, I'm not going to talk, Mayor and I, last night, was that already last night? Seems so long ago. Went to Jump, had their annual Nehemiah event. Mayor and I got up there. I'm not sure we told them everything they wanted to hear. I do believe we told them things they needed to hear. But more importantly, I think we had some understanding on the path forward to a few of their goals and initiatives and gave them some direction as to where we can sort of work together and accomplish some goals. I will give to the city clerk at their request to go wherever into the record that this goes, that they had everyone fill out a form that just said that they support the efforts of Jump for us to support the Housing Trust Fund. So I will make sure that everyone gets those, that they get submitted into the record, and everyone knows that there are quite a few here, hundreds, maybe a thousand of those that people offering their support for that. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Lester. Councilwoman Hiller. There you go.
From what we're hearing, there's a lot going on, and all of us aren't able to get to every one of those dedications and ribbon cuttings. And so I just want to compliment and thank the mayor and deputy mayor and all of my colleagues for getting around to all of them. I think we're all doing our best, and it's an exciting time to find that so much is happening that it's hard to go to everything. We had the Live in the Dream banquet this weekend, which was very nice as well. Our third Ukrainian family came, and the community has been phenomenal, kind of item by item in what they need, and so on. It's with all the stresses and challenges that we have and that we've had, it's a really good time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to congrats to all the graduates, wanted to say congratulations to my nephew, Estefan Valdivia, who will be graduating from Washburn University. Also, I would agree with Councilwoman Ortiz. The event at Our Lady of Guadalupe was not only very well attended, but very memorable. It was great to see so many people turn out. And also for so many city directors, officials, administration to turn out, because I think that was a statement to the understanding the importance not only of Our Lady of Guadalupe, but the men and women that have served. And that was a really good turnout of city officials, and was really glad to see that. And then additionally, want to encourage folks to go see the multicultural mural that was dedicated this past Friday. It is on the west side of the Habitat for Humanity building, which is nestled in there with Noto. It's at 121 Northeast Gordon Street. And a big shout out of thanks to George Mayfield, artist, Jaime Colon, artist, and Mona Mayfield, artist. Habitat was a sponsor, Arts Connect was a sponsor, the Unseen Society was a sponsor, and Prairie Band. And it's a powerful tri-mural to be added now into the history that we're starting to build for murals in our Topeka community. So hopefully folks can get out there and see that. Thank you, Mayor.
I don't want to go over ground that's already been covered, but I do want to thank the deputy mayor for joining me at the Nehemiah. I think it was a plan he and I hatched, and I think it went well. We received a lot of good compliments from those who attended. I think they guesstimated about 1,000 people there that night. I do think that we have continued the dialogue and made practical solutions or suggestions on how we move forward with the housing requests that they have been champions for. I attended this morning the Small Business Awards, and that was really impressive. Councilwoman Ortiz was there as well, the deputy mayor. It was really nice to see, and we talked a little bit about diversity, and it was clear at those awards that diversity is really happening in Topeka in a significant way when it comes to small businesses. So I am really glad that we were able to participate in that. There were a lot of good candidates. It would be hard to make the choices that they did, but I do want to congratulate all of the nominees. And I don't want to call them the winners in those categories. Those who received the awards, I think, is better, because I think they're all winners from the descriptions that we heard about their businesses. So there is a lot going on in Topeka. I also, just before I came here, I was at the GTP Chairs Council, Momentum 2022 and looking to 2027. There is so much on that plate. But what I like about the new strategy is that it has been streamlined, and I think it'll give us the ability to meet those goals in an even more focused way. So I appreciate the work that GTP has done, and look forward to advocating and working with all those staff over there to bring those goals to a successful conclusion. We've got 5 more years to do this. I think it's later this month, next month is when they close out 2022. But work has already started on some of the initiatives for 2027. So I thank you all, and there is a need for 2 executive sessions this evening. If I could have the city attorney read, please.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 30 minutes for consultation with the city attorney to discuss attorney-client privilege matters regarding specific litigation as justified by KSA 754319B2. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff are requested to assist the governing body in its deliberation: interim city manager Cochran and city attorney Stanley.
You've heard the need for an executive session. Is there a motion? I have a motion from Councilwoman Ortiz, and a second.
Second.
Deputy Mayor seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. We will recess into executive session after a quick 10-minute recess before we go into session. Okay, we have reconvened the meeting and are now back in open session with no action being taken by the governing body during the first executive session. There is a need to go into a second executive session if the city attorney would read.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss matters related to an individual employee pursuant to KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberations: interim city manager Cochran and any other staff he deems necessary.
You heard the need for a second session. Is there a motion? Motion from Councilman Lester. Is there a second? A second from Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will recess into a executive session immediately.
6-2.
Ready? We are now reconvened from the second session and back in person. No action has been taken by the governing body during the executive session. If there is no further business appearing before the governing body, the meeting is adjourned.